Hello students. Today, we will explore a poem called My Last Duchess by Robert Browning. The poem tells a story, but it is in the form of a dramatic monologue. This means that only one character speaks and he tells us a story through his own words. In this poem, the Duke is speaking to a visitor about a portrait of his late wife, who is referred to as his last Duchess. The poem shows us how the Duke feels about his wife, what kind of person he is, and how he views relationships and power. We will go through the poem line by line to understand every word and idea. The first line of the poem is, "That's my last Duchess painted on the wall." Here, the Duke is talking about a painting of his wife. Duchess is a title, like a queen or princess, that shows someone is a noblewoman, or a woman from a royal family. My last Duchess means that she was his last wife, but she is not alive anymore. She has passed away, and now there is only a painting of her on the wall. The Duke seems proud as he shows the painting to his visitor. This tells us that he thinks it is a valuable piece of art. In the next line, he says, looking as if she were alive. Here, the Duke is saying that the painting of his wife looks so real that it seems like she is still alive. The poem goes on, I call that piece a wonder. Now, Fra Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. Here, the Duke is explaining that the painting is special, or a wonder. He says that Fra Pandolf, the artist, worked hard to make this painting in one day. Fra Pandolf is not a real artist, but Robert Browning, the poet, created this name to make the story feel more realistic. By mentioning the artist's name, the Duke shows that he cares about status and appearance. He likes to mention the famous artist, which shows that he is proud to have something created by someone important. Next, he says, "Wilt please you sit and look at her?" Here, the Duke invites his guest to sit down and look at the painting more closely. He wants his visitor to admire it and see how beautiful it is. This line also shows that the Duke is controlling. He is giving instructions to his guest, telling him where to sit and what to do. This gives us a hint that the Duke might not only be proud but also bossy or demanding. In the following lines, the Duke says, I said, Fra Pandolfa by design, for never read strangers like you that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turned, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I. In these lines, he explains that he often mentions the artist's name on purpose. He wants to impress his visitors by saying the name of a famous artist. The Duke also says that people who see the painting are surprised by the look, or a glance, on the Duchess's face. The Duke is the only one who can open the curtain in front of the painting. This shows that he is in control of who sees his wife's picture. No one else has the power to look at her unless he allows it. This also tells us that he likes to control and have power over his things and, even more importantly, over people. The Duke goes on to describe how people react to the painting. He says, and seemed as they would ask me, if they durst, how such a glance came there. He imagines that people would want to ask him about the expression on the Duchess's face if they were brave enough. Here, durst is an old-fashioned word for dared, or had the courage. He thinks people are curious but too afraid to ask him directly. This shows that the Duke might be intimidating or frightening, and that people might feel scared to ask him questions. In the next lines, he starts talking about his feelings toward the Duchess herself. He says, Sir, 'twas not her husband's presence only, called that spot of joy into the Duchess' cheek. Here, the Duke is telling his guest that the blush, or spot of joy, on her cheek was not only because of him, her husband. He seems unhappy that his wife looked happy or smiled for other people, not just for him. This tells us that he wanted her to show love and happiness only for him and not for others. He felt she should not enjoy anyone else's company or show kindness to anyone else. The Duke then says, perhaps Fra Pandolf chanced to say, her mantle laps over my lady's wrist too much, or paint must never hope to reproduce the faint half-flush that dies along her throat. Here, the Duke imagines the artist, Fra Pandolf, saying kind or flattering words to the Duchess while painting her. Mantle means a kind of cloak or cover that she is wearing. The artist might have said that her cloak covers her wrist too much, or he might have praised her beauty by saying that no paint could capture the soft, pink color on her neck. The Duke suggests that the Duchess blushed when she heard these compliments. This small blush, or half-flush, annoyed the Duke because it showed that his wife enjoyed compliments from others. He thought that she should not be so easily pleased. The Duke continues, such stuff was courtesy, she thought, and cause enough for calling up that spot of joy. Here, the Duke is saying that the Duchess thought it was polite to smile and be kind to others. She believed it was courtesy to be friendly and polite. But the Duke did not like this. He felt that she was too friendly with other people, and he wanted her to act differently. The Duke then says, she had a heart, how shall I say? Too soon made glad, too easily impressed, she liked what she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. In this part, the Duke complains that the Duchess was too quick to feel happy. Too soon made glad means that she was easily pleased. She enjoyed everything she saw, and she would look at many things around her. This also bothered the Duke because he wanted her attention only on him. He felt that her joy and happiness were not special for him alone. The Duke goes on, sir, 'twas all one. My favor at her breast, the dropping of the daylight in the west, the bough of cherries some officious fool broke in the orchard for her, the white mule she rode with round the terrace, all and each would draw from her alike the approving speech, or blush, at least. Here, he lists the things that made her happy. She would blush or smile in the same way for many things, his special gift, the beauty of the sunset, a simple branch of cherries, or even her favorite white mule. He thought these small things should not make her as happy as his favor or gift did. The Duke felt that he was more important than all of these things and that she should have shown more happiness for him than for anything else. In the next lines, he says, she thanked men, good. But thanked somehow, I know not how, as if she ranked my gift of a 900-years-old name with anybody's gift. Here, the Duke complains that the Duchess was kind and polite to other men. She would thank them as if their gifts were as important as the Duke's gifts. The Duke's family name, or last name, was old and respected, it was 900 years old, which means it was very ancient and powerful. He thought that marrying him and being a part of his family was a great honor. However, she did not seem to value this honor as much as he thought she should. She did not act as if his name was better than other men's gifts, and this made the Duke feel unappreciated. The Duke says, who'd stoop to blame this sort of trifling? Even had you skill in speech, which I have not, to make your will quite clear to such an one, and say, just this or that in you disgusts me, here you miss, or there exceed the mark, and if she let herself be lessoned so, nor plainly set her wits to yours, forsooth, and made excuse, e'en then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Here, the Duke is saying that he did not want to stoop, or lower himself to tell her about his feelings. He thought it would be beneath him, or disrespectful to himself, to explain to her what she did wrong. He believes he should not have to teach her how to act, and he should not have to tell her what behavior disgusts him. He thinks she should already know how to make him happy. Finally, the Duke says, oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, ween. I passed her, but who passed without much the same smile? This means that she smiled at him, but she also smiled at other people the same way. He did not feel special because she treated others in a similar manner. He wanted her to save her smiles only for him. This was a sign to the Duke that she did not see him as more important than other people. He felt that his position as her husband should make him the most important person in her life, and he wanted her to show special respect and love only for him. Because she did not do this, he felt angry and hurt. This shows us that the Duke is very possessive, which means he wants to own and control people, especially his wife. The Duke then gives us a strong hint about what happened to the Duchess. He says, this grew, I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. There she stands as if alive. Here, the Duke tells his guest that he gave commands, and after that, the Duchess stopped smiling. He does not directly say what he did, but it sounds like he ordered someone to make her stop smiling. This is a very dark hint that the Duke might have had her killed or sent away because he did not like her behavior. When he says, there she stands as if alive, he is talking about the painting again. The painting is the only way he can keep her under control, since it shows her exactly how he wants her, silent and unable to smile at others. This part of the poem is important because it reveals the Duke's true character. He is not just proud and controlling, he is also cruel and unkind. He wanted so much control over his wife that he did something extreme when she did not act the way he wanted. This makes the reader feel shocked and even afraid of the Duke because he seems dangerous. He cares more about controlling people than about showing them love or understanding. Next, the Duke changes the subject and speaks as if nothing bad has happened. He says, "Will't please you rise? We'll meet the company below, then." Here, he is asking his guest to stand up and go downstairs with him to meet the other people who are waiting. The Duke's sudden change of subject shows that he does not feel sad or guilty about what happened to his wife. He treats the situation as if it were just a small detail, and he quickly moves on to something else. This tells us that the Duke is cold-hearted and does not care deeply about others. Then, he says, "I repeat, the Count your master's known munificence is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed." Here, the Duke starts talking about the Count, who is the father of the woman he wants to marry next. The Duke is speaking to a servant of the Count, who has come to discuss the marriage. A dowry is money or property that a bride's family gives to the groom when they get married. The Duke says that he knows the Count is generous, or munificent, and he expects that the Count will agree to give him a large dowry. This part of the poem shows us that the Duke is thinking more about money and status than about love or companionship. He is very business-minded about marriage, as if it is a transaction or deal. He wants to marry the Count's daughter because it will give him more wealth and power. The Duke is not interested in love, he is interested in what he can gain from the marriage. In the final lines, the Duke mentions a statue he owns. He says, "Though his fair daughter's self, as I avowed at starting, is my object. Nay, we'll go together down, sir." Notice Neptune, though, taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which Claus of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me. Here, the Duke tells his guest that his main interest is the Count's daughter. He says this to make it sound like he is genuinely interested in her, but the way he speaks shows that he sees her as another possession, like the painting or the statue he mentions. He then points to a statue of Neptune, a Roman god of the sea, who is shown taming a seahorse. Taming means controlling or calming down an animal. The Duke says that this statue is very rare, and it was made by a famous sculptor, Claus of Innsbruck. This statue is a symbol of power, showing Neptune controlling a powerful creature. By showing this to his guest, the Duke is once again showing his need for control. The statue represents how the Duke sees himself, as someone who should have power and control over others, especially over his wife or his future bride. This final part of the poem helps us understand the Duke's personality even more. He is a man who values art, power, and control, but he does not value love or kindness. He sees people as objects that he can own and control. He does not care about their feelings or desires, he only cares about how they make him look and feel. This makes the Duke seem like a very selfish and dangerous person, someone who values his own power above all else. In My Last Duchess, Robert Browning uses the Duke's words to tell us about his character without directly saying it. The Duke reveals his own cruelty and possessiveness by the way he describes his last Duchess and by the hints he gives about her fate. The Duke's treatment of the Duchess shows that he has a very twisted view of relationships. He believes that love is about control and power, not about care and understanding. By the end of the poem, we understand that the Duke's next wife may face a similar fate if she does not act exactly the way he wants. My Last Duchess is a powerful poem by Robert Browning because it makes us think about the dangers of jealousy, possessiveness, and the desire for control. It reminds us that love should be about respecting and valuing other people as they are, not trying to control them or make them behave a certain way. Through this story, Browning teaches us to look out for people who may seem charming on the outside but have dark motives underneath. This poem can be difficult to understand, but by breaking down each line, we can see that it is a story about power, control, and the consequences of treating people as possessions.